Hello everybody, welcome back to Ozzie's Oddities. Today what we're going to do is we're going to make some rope. Just the way they did back in the old days in the 1800s and the pioneers, and it goes way back farther than that, but I can't go back that far. So we're going to make it the way the pioneers did. And we're going to use all kinds of rope makers on the market. There's gear, some are metal, some are wood, some have gears, some just have hooks. But what we're going to do today is a simple way to make rope. And most rope makers have 3 hooks. And that's so you can have 3 strands of rope that you're going to put together. And I'll explain that a little bit later. But they were made, this one was made to put on a wagon box. Well, we don't have the wagon box here right now, so we're just using a piece of plywood just to show you. I've put them on the back of chairs and on sawhorses and clamped a board to tables and everything else. But this is how it's going to work today. We're going to put it on this piece of plywood. And what we have is 3 hooks with a crank on the back side. I put some silicone on there just to make it run smooth, so when you turn this, when I turn this handle, the crank is turning these 3 hooks on the front side of the rope maker. Simple device. At one time, a friend of mine had a rope maker that he found at an old farmstead, and it was actually in the wagon, laying in a wagon. And he bought it, and it was all rotten, and there was pieces missing and everything else. And he brought it to me and asked me what it was. And I told him, well, that's an old-time rope maker. That's the kind they put on the wagon box. So he says, could you rebuild it for me? Well, in the restoration shop here, sure, we could put anything together. So we made a wooden, while I made it for him, I made one for myself too. This is how they're made. They're made of solid oak, and they're all steel constructed with the hooks, and they're made heavy duty, so you could make not just a light rope, but you could make a 1/2 inch or a 3/4 inch rope on here if the hooks were big enough. That's the important thing. And when you make rope, you can make it out of different materials. Years ago, it was made out of horsehair, cow's tails. They made it out of grass. They made fish line out of fine thread. They would put it together to make their own fish line. You could use yarn. You can use, what I commonly use is baler twine, because it's easy to get a hold of. But baler twine works fine, binder twine. You can use any kind of string, any kind of twine that you can find. You can even use rags if you want to do them, and twist rags together. But this is just a medium-sized hook. It's generally made for a 1/4 inch rope or 1/2 inch rope. So let's get some twine, and I'll show you how to thread this thing. I'll shim this up first. Perfect.
What are you doing?
Huh?
What are you doing?
I'm shimming this up because my board isn't thick enough. It's not as thick as a wagon box. I only got 1/2 inch plywood where a wagon box would be 3/4. So now we're tight, ready to go. All right, we'll get rid of these. All right, let's make some rope. This is what we're going to use today to make our rope. And you can see in here, I keep my twine. I keep a, oh, there's my clamp in there. How'd that get in there? We don't need that. I might show that down the road. But here's where I keep my twine. I just keep a ball of twine in a 5-gallon pail with a hole on the top, so easy access for me. Okay, I'm going to cut this off. This end has been hanging out. It's kind of dirty. We don't need that. Okay, Here's my twine. Now, when we thread this thing, we have to have a tool because the thread or the twine starts here, but it goes down to the length that we want our rope. And somebody has to hold this tool. All it is a, I don't know what you call it, but it's got three holes where you wrap your twine on, and I'll show you how that works. So I'm going to get my assistant down here to hold that. We'll make just a short loop, about not that long. There's, like I said before, there's many different ways to make rope. I'm going to show you the simplest way, and we used to do this. We used to go around and demonstrate in schools and at fairs, harvest festivals and so forth. But this is the simplest way, and with this, the simple way, you can involve several kids, and kids love to make rope. We get one kid cranking, one kid holding the other end, and a couple in the center of the rope holding it apart. So let's get started here now, and first thing you do, we've got 3 hooks. We've got to make a loop. Like I said, I haven't done this for a while. We haven't demonstrated rope making for some time now. Okay, we've got a loop on our twine. We're going to hook that loop on our first hook. Okay? Now we're going to go back to my assistant here, and we're going to put it through one of the 3 holes on this tool. Then we're going to go to the top one, and we're going to go to the next hook, the second hook. Then we're going to come back, and I hope I'm not getting twisted up here.
Take your rope to the other side.
And we're going to go, we're coming back to the same loop, and then we're going to go to the 3rd hook. Okay, now we're on the 3rd hook. We've got 2 strands on that hook. Now we're going back through that same come through your hand one time. Okay, now we've got 2 strands on 2 holes. Now we're going back to our first hole again. You might want to show this back here so you can see we're coming to, and now we're going to go back to our first hook. I've got this twisted here. I shouldn't have.
Should be on the other side with your...
Yeah, I should be where he is. Okay, it doesn't matter. It's going to get twisted anyway. Okay, now we're straight. Now we've got 2 strands on each hook. Now I'm going to tie this one off. Okay,
Just enough.
so we got it. We started our twine on the first hook. We went all the way back to this tool with the three grooves in it. We came through one, and then we went up to the next one and came back to our metal hook, and we went back through that top one and to the 3rd hole and back to the hook, and then back again. And now we're going to go back to our first hole and come back and tie it off on this hook here. So now we've actually got 6 strands of rope. 6 strands of twine, I should say, baler twine. That should make a 1/4 inch rope. But now, we have a twist in the twine right now, but in order to make a rope, you have to twist these together. So this is where the rope making machine comes in. If we turn this in a clockwise direction, we're twisting all those ropes. And we got to keep watching these strands so they don't twist together. But we'll keep going in a clockwise motion, and notice how these are twisting now. These two are twisting into one. And if you got to keep attention on that down there and hold it fairly tight. And we keep turning this in a clockwise direction. And you can see that our twine is twisting. And this takes a while because you got to get some twist on that twine. You can see it's starting to turn, and it's getting shorter as we twist too. We lose, they say it's a tenth, but it's more than that. And again, you can make this rope as long as you want, as long as you've got enough people to keep these apart. You don't want these to twist together, but you want the rope, each individual. Now, I keep cranking the machine clockwise, and it keeps twisting these ropes. Touch it, but look, see how it's getting? But we want it to keep going so it gets a fairly good tension. And when it starts buckling, then you know you've got too much. So, and it's not buckling yet, but it's getting a good tight. And that's where you get your strength in your rope, is the twists. She's just about ready now. She's just about ready to go. Yep, she's starting to twist. You can see it's not a straight line to me, but it's tight now. They're tight together. Now I'm going to leave this sit, and I'm going to take this end, and I'm going to have my assistant crank it for me. You go up to the other end and you crank it.
Tell them about uses.
Crank it clockwise. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this end. It's like a 3, and look at here. It's starting to come together and make a rope. See that? We have a tension on here, and it wants to make its own tight rope. And we'll have it crank it a little bit more. As she cranks, the tension in the rope makes a nice tight rope. That's good. If you crank too much, it'll start twisting and buckling in here. If you notice the rope, you notice how tight they are. This way I can control it as I'm watching this rope myself. As I move this forward, it'll make its own rope, but it won't be as tight. But if I help it a little bit, and she makes a turn now and then, give me a couple turns, the rope comes together. It's very simple. This is the simplest way to make a rope. Okay, that's good. The only problem with this is you got to have 2 people. But when you're demonstrating in a class full of kids or at a fair, everybody wants to help out. So this is a perfect thing to do. Okay, crank me just a little bit more. We're going to keep the tension on that. That's good. A little bit more. Oh, that's good. Okay, we've come to the end of our rope here.
Literally.
Now the rope is tight. All we have to do, okay, we don't need the tool anymore. Now all we have to do, now I could put a piece of electrician's tape or what do you call it, duct tape on here, and that would hold the rope. But for simple purposes and the easiest way, we unhook these one at a time from the hooks. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now we've got our end of the rope. Now, most people would put a piece of tape on here, or the Boy Scouts would wrap some string on there and call it whipping a rope. For our purposes and for demonstration purposes, we just take and we put a knot on the end of that rope. That's the fastest way. Now you've got a rope. Now the farmers use these ropes for making hay for their horses, tying up livestock, and a million uses for rope. You always have to have rope on the farm. So the rope maker was a very common machine used. It's a great demonstration piece, and it makes a nice rope. And you can make, like I say, you can make it as long as you want. This is about almost a 1/2 inch rope when you got 6 strands. I call it a 1/2 inch rope. But it's strong. I use them on the farm all the time, in the shop, for just about everything. So we have made a rope. And there you have it. There you have it. Here on Ozzie's Oddities, we made a rope today. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you again next time. Bye now.